Hello, everybody. Happy terrific Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I know that this is an off day. I usually go live on Mondays. Well, today I have a special surprise and a treat for you all. Today we're going to have a panel conversation and discussion. And so, if you've had an opportunity to check out the description today, we are discussing whether or not parents should be penalized when they are receiving some sort of government assistance, maybe housing assistance or welfare, food stamps, TANF cash assistance, things of that nature, when their children get into some sort of legal um, situation, right? So the conversation is just pretty much asking, should parents be penalized for the behavior of their child if their child is arrested for something? So I'm going to bring on actually three of my students, and we're going to have this conversation because it is applicable, and we have had so many questions. We've had conversations and debates surrounding this matter. I've had colleagues and landlords asking Carissa, should tenants be terminated if the tenants' children are violating, they're getting arrested, and they're creating all types of offenses. And so today's discussion is not legal advice. We're not here to judge anybody. We're not here to say that someone is guilty or not, but we're just having an honest conversation amongst my students and the class today. So thank you so much for tuning in. So I'm going to invite with me today Mr. Derek Calzert, Miss Candy Bolton, and Miss Jasmine Jones. So let me bring them on. Hello, Derek. Happy Tuesday, sir.
Happy Tuesday.
All right. So, Derek, I've already done the introduction. I'm going to bring on our other attendees for today. Hi, Candy.
Hi, how's everyone doing?
Thank you so much for joining me today. I've already done the introduction. I'm now bringing on our final attendee for the discussion today. Hello, Jasmine. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday.
All right. Thank you all for joining the conversation, the debate, the dialogue today. And I've pretty much done an overview in terms of the introduction. I want you all to introduce yourself.
My name is Derek Calser. I'm a student of Miss Spain's taking the property management course. And I don't know, 37, like long walks to the beach. I'm an Aries. I don't know.
Thank you for that, Candy.
Hi, everyone. My name is Candy. Also a student of Miss Spence taking a property management course. I'm not going to tell my age. Yeah, that's it. I'm ready to start.
Jasmine.
My name is Jasmine Jones. I'm 31. I'm also an Aries, and I live in the Washington, D.C. area, and I'm taking Miss Chan's leasing course.
All right. Well, thank you all so much. And so I love having honest conversations about things that impact the community, things that impact families and individuals. And so today we're talking about whether or not parents should be penalized when their children are defiant, when they're arrested, when they act up. And so, Derek, I'm going to start with you because I want your input on the subject matter. So let's just set the foundation, okay? So there was a situation in Washington, D.C., where two minors were arrested for an offense that was responsible for taking the life of someone that they did not know. And so someone died because of their behavior, actions that could have saved this person's life. And we later found out, give me one moment. I'm hearing a lot of, Derek, let me ask that you mute your device for now, please. Okay, that's a little bit better. Thank you. And so here's a situation. So two minors, okay, they went out, they were having fun, and for whatever reason, they decided to take action, and their action resulted to it ended up with someone losing their life because of them. So when the story unfolded, these teens, preteens, well, teens, if you will, they are participants in a housing complex in Washington, D.C. And so the conversation, the dialogue, and the discussion is pretty much along the lines of whether or not the parents' housing subsidy, any government subsidy, whether it's TANF welfare cash benefits, if it's food stamps, if parents should be penalized for their child's behavior. Then there's also debate and questions about whether or not there should be tougher regulations or restrictions or penalties. And so we're going to have this conversation today. And if you have any comments, my viewers out there watching on Facebook and YouTube, if you have any comments or questions, go ahead and drop it in the comment section and we will respond to them accordingly. And so, Derek, I'm going to ask that you unmute yourself. And Derek, I want your feedback because you do offer valuable information and you offer valuable input. So here in this situation, what is your response to this?
So my stance was, I think I'm not gonna say the parent should be penalized, but I think that the money or the financial benefit that they're getting, the assistance that they're getting, because you're only getting that assistance typically, or normally they was getting that assistance because they have children, and the assistance is to help you raise your child, to help you guide your child, to help you take your child to the next level. And if you're not doing that with those tax dollars, then we should get them back, reallocate them, and put them somewhere where they can be better used. So,
Okay.
especially if your child is locked up and that was your only child, now taxpayers, us, the community, are paying for the child that's in the youth detention, and then we're paying for you to raise a child that ain't even there until they're 21. That's not fair.
That's not fair. Okay. All right. I can appreciate that. I'm coming to you now, Jasmine. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Jasmine.
Okay. Hello. So my stance is no, I don't believe that the parent should be penalized. I do understand when someone is on public assistance, they typically have more than one child sometimes, and you don't understand the magnitude of the household. I would say maybe counseling, maybe you can understand the root of the issue as to why or where the parent went wrong. You don't understand the household, so I don't really take in the benefits until we actually understand the problem.
Okay. Thank you for that. Candy, I'm coming to you next. Can you unmute yourself, Candy? I want your feedback on this subject matter, Candy.
I understand what Derek is saying, taxpayer also. But like we were saying before discussion that started earlier, I was raised by a single mother. And if it wasn't for my mother being able to receive welfare and things like that, like we would have been below the poverty line, to be honest with you, or right at the poverty line. But because of that, my youngest sister, she was able to take advantage of different scholarships and things like that they provided in the city. And she went on to get 3 degrees in college. My youngest sister, my oldest brother, he I guess wanted to live the life of a gangster, whatever, wanted to do what he wanted to do. He wanted to drop out of high school and things like that. And, not further his education. He wanted to sell drugs and do all these other things. We grew up in a very religious household. Even though my mom was a single mom, she tried to instill manners in us and things like that and tried to direct us on the right path. If my mom was penalized for the things that my brother did, then, like I said, where would that have left us? I do feel like once you have a juvenile that's locked up in a system or whatever, or then you should no longer be receiving food stamps for that particular dependent. You can't just make all the other dependents suffer because of what that one dependent did. And I don't think that the parents should be blamed. Because like I said, my mother had us in church constantly praying, that my brother would get off the street and things like that. And she should not have been penalized for anything like that. Like that would have been wrong because she tried her best. But you do have
Okay.
some parents out here that are kind of neglectful. So you need
Okay.
like Jazz said, therapy would help.
Okay. And that's a good point. Derek, let me come back to you. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Derek.
Therapy, I get it. That's nice, but it just sounds like throw more money at a situation that statistically, because again, like you, I came from the same environment, single mother, came from the single environment, hardworking mother. But everybody can't win, and throwing more money at a situation that ain't manifesting success is pointless. That's like putting a band-aid on a bullet hole. Why? Everybody can't win. God making more people. God ain't making no more land. Everybody can't survive. Everybody can't win. And I hate to be so abrasive about it or say it in such a direct way. I hope people don't hate me, but everybody can't win. We all can't eat. There's not enough gazelles for all the lions to eat. Some of them have to fall to the wayside. Everybody's not going to get to reproduce. Everybody's not going to get to eat tonight. And if you can't, survival of the fittest. Push on and move on.
Okay, so Derek, you have some really strong points there. I'm gonna just put you on mute for a second, just to minimize some of that feedback. I just want to acknowledge a few people who's here. Hello, Dr. Baker. Thank you so much for tuning in. All right, Facebook user, I understand everyone's point of view. Okay, for me, hey, Miss Pimkey, thank you so much for tuning in, Rose. For me, it's different. You said your comment here is if you have other kids, it's okay to keep receiving support. But if you just have one child, you shouldn't receive any more money if the child isn't there anymore. And I think that goes back to what Candy was saying. Dr. Baker says, good point from the young lady, that no monies and benefits for the dependent that is no longer there should be revoked. And I think that that is a great point. But going back to some comments, some really strong points and arguments that you made, Derek, about everybody can't eat, right? Now, let me beg to differ, because I just believe that no matter what the situation or the economy, God has already created provision for everybody to survive and to be successful and to get through trying times. But I also believe that He put us together on this earth so that we can do things together. So helping each other out. I don't believe in kicking anybody off the island, Derek, and telling them that, everybody just can't win. Right. But I do subscribe to some of your points that you made, Derek. But then I do have a question. So how would you suggest the government handle it, right? How would you suggest handling this type of situation, whereas you have families that's receiving, let's say, housing assistance, okay? There's no way to determine who's going to be successful, who's not going to capitalize off of the benefits. There's no way to determine whether one person or one family is going to go far in life. You don't really know the outcomes. So how would you quantify that? How would you determine if let's say, Derek, you're the head of the department, right? How would you determine or to say who's going to receive the benefits and how the funds are allocated? How would that work out for you?
Who's going to receive them? I mean, how they do it now is fine, right? I wouldn't change that. I mean, based on the poverty level, based on income, that's how they qualify for it now. And if you have a kid or if you have a disability, that's understandable, right? I'm not heartless. But how long you stay on it and the regulations if you on it, I think it needs to be stricken. So like, I actually did this. I want to say for UDC before. It was a business class actually, and one of the businesses I wanted to start was a nonprofit. It was a school. So part of my school, I just worked for the school system, and one of the things I remember working for the school system is the parents that was receiving those benefits had to come to the school once a year to get the attendance counselor to sign and say, my child is in accordance to to the policy of the school system, right? So, but a lot of times it wasn't. They weren't. your child was like never there. So one, I would just say don't sign it. Now you force the parent to make the child go to school if that parent want to receive those benefits. Another thing, let's start at the beginning. A lot of these parents, I'll make sure I'm not, I want to say I'm the only male in this class, but a lot of these parents are women, right? And women don't necessarily say to the put the men down as who their fathers are. That's how they receive these benefits. I think every man should have his DNA on paper. So that way, when this child is born, you can't say you don't know who the parent is. I don't know him who that child's father is. Why should I have to pay for your child when he right there? Junebug right there. Make Junebug pay that hospital bill. Little
Okay.
Rico right there. Let Rico pay that hospital bill. Then you'll think about having a child. You'll be more concerned about how you moving when it's a benefit. I mean, when it's a consequence and it's not a benefit, right? That's the first. I will make all men put their DNA on paper. Second, I would say if you're receiving those benefits, you have to go and take some form of higher education or skill trade. You have to not just apply for jobs how they have workforce development now in order to get the continue to get unemployment. You have to apply for so many jobs a week. Nah, well, while you apply for those jobs, you also need to be in somebody's class, because through education is how you're gonna get out of poverty. Through higher skill sets is how you're gonna get out of poverty. Next, you have to take a drug test randomly once or twice a year. Why should Junebug get to make all the money off your EBT card? 50 cents for $1. That ain't fair.
Okay. All right.
I think with those regulations right there, I think that'll curve a lot of the unwanted deviant behaviors that has spiraled out of control when it comes to the government assistance programs.
Okay. Let me go to one of the comments, and I'm coming to you, Jasmine. So Kalaya, she's tuned in. She's watching from YouTube. She says, I think there should be a 3-strike system where they reduce or take away benefits. Jasmine, I'm coming to you. I see you nod, and let me have you to respond to that.
All right, Derek, you don't want to throw money away. So let's not say the word throw. Let's say allocate. So we can allocate more money to therapy and instead of DNA testing, because you know how much it costs to get a DNA test. It's not cheap to swab a child. It's not cheap to catch a man to swab him. He's an adult. Some men, as we know, some men take up and stand up on their responsibility, and some don't. With race or anything like that, it just happens. And I mean, when you have multiple children and you're trying to raise multiple children by the same father or different fathers, it can be a lot as a mom when you're trying to go to work. You cannot keep a tab on 4 and 3 kids. Have you tried to raise 3 kids? Maybe one is 13, one is 10, and one is 3. Have you done that? The 13-year-old may get lost because you put more pressure on the 13-year-old. I don't, I will speak. I don't have kids, but I have been raised. I'm the oldest of 4. And I was the child that got lost. If all my mistakes and incidents were accounted for, I could not be right here. And my mother was on assistance. But if they took away my mother's assistance from my mistakes, it would be like, you shouldn't penalize my mother because I'm going through my growing pains of life. Because I'm growing up. Mistakes happen. Everything I won't know. She can only instill in me a foundation, but other things I'm going to learn on the outside. Foundation is where your are at, and the values they can instill you, but you learn your own life lessons when you go out on your own. And I don't think parents or other people understand that. I think they believe that your mother raised you a certain type of way. Yeah, but you watch television, you go outside, you're in school for most of the time of the day. You're around your peers, people who don't know just as much as you do. There's a lot of influence when a child is being raised. So to penalize the mother, you don't know what she had going on. That's why I say therapy. You talk to her. You talk to the other kids, because kids are honest. You listen. They will tell you. You can understand the story of a household if you talk to everyone involved. And to just make it seem like this mother or this father should be penalized because the child got, slipped under the rug, I feel like that is just wrong. That'll cause way more damage to a system that we're trying to repair than it will to repair the system. And sorry, that's my take.
Okay. I like the argument. I like the discussion. As we can hear, Jasmine is definitely passionate about therapy and getting help for the entire family. Candy, I'm coming to you. We're still responding to Kalaya's comment that there should be a three-strike rule to reduce or to take away benefits. How would you respond to that, Candy? Candy, can you go ahead and unmute yourself, please?
I'm sorry, everyone. I think the only problem with having a three-strike rule again is just like Jazz was just saying, she should be penalized for her mom should not be penalized for the mistakes that youth make. All children are different. I feel like an easier solution, like what Derek was saying, like they shouldn't just be out like, oh, I applied for this job or that job. They should be in some type of training course, something, some type of education, something that's like, hey, okay, you're about to get placed into work. Maybe the best solution is just to for low income families, maybe the government should match their income by 50%, because if you think, I'm not exactly sure how much minimum wage is, but it's not a lot. And so if you were making minimum wage, is how much? Well, I don't know if I can't hear you, Dirk.
It depends on the state.
Oh, but yeah, but a lot of these parents are they're living off of a minimum wage salary, and that's what's having them barely getting by. And if it wasn't for the benefits of the state as far as like food and food banks and Medicaid, because Medicaid costs a lot, it really do. Like my kids get sick or something like that, and I need medicine. Good RX only goes for so far, you know. Like, and it really, really does help. But I do feel like maybe a solution would be that they have to work a mandatory of 30 to 40 hours a week, because a lot of these people, like you said, some people might not be educated enough or experienced enough to be placed into a job where they can make enough money to support themselves and their families adequately. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
that's like you were saying with the training, Dirk, that's when the training come in. So I feel like they should work like a minimum of 30 hours a week, and maybe the government should match that income by 25%. But it has to be a minimum of 30 hours a week, because $15 or $14 a week is not a lot, especially after taxes also. But yeah, I think that's a good way to help them. And and there should be a time limit on it. Things can't go on forever.
Okay. So you believe that they should be required to work. There should be a time limit on the government assistance they're receiving, right?
Yes.
And I think you all suggest that therapy will be good. And I see that Jasmine unmuted herself, but I'm looking at the comments. So Kalaya, she agrees that she feels that therapy would be good for the community, right? And then Dr. Baker comment is, as a therapist, she said, second, what Jasmine suggested. So Jasmine, hearing the conversation from Candy and Derek, they're suggesting that there should be a time frame. They also suggest that families should be required to work. They should be required to work a certain amount of hours. What is your input on this, Jasmine, and how do you respond to that?
Okay, so Candy, I do agree that there, and Derek, I do agree that there is a time crunch because some people do get comfortable. I'm not saying that people don't abuse the system, but I am saying we have to weed out the people that are, oh, I can't.
We can hear you.
We can hear
Okay,
you.
there it goes. I couldn't hear Miss Bond, so she was talking, but I couldn't. I'm sorry. I agree with both of you all. There should be a time crunch because some people do abuse the system, but we need to weed out those abuse the system. You don't penalize everybody for a few people. And I agree with Candy in regards to sorry, the statement that she just made. I do apologize. About everybody doesn't have the same story, so things differ. Derek, I understand that you want to hit the gavel and be judge and make sure that people and you enforce these rules because you know that people are taking advantage, and it is your tax dollars, which I completely understand. But you have to understand that everybody's story is different. No one is raised the same. No one deals with the same trials and tribulations. People are raised in different communities. Great communities sometimes have more access to very bad things like drugs. You can get drugs easily. You can get its balance way more easily in upper class neighborhoods. We don't discuss that because it's not seen, because you can add those things way easier in a lower class neighborhood than anything. And I just feel like with this situation and younger kids committing more violent crimes, there is a story. That child is probably not the oldest. It's probably a middle child who gets lost in translation. The thing that public schools used to have was no child left behind. With your sentiment, we're leaving children behind, and we don't want to do that. Just my
Okay, so let me jump in here, Derek. I see that you have a comment, and we're going to wrap this up in about a minute or two. But
No Child Left Behind was the worst thing that ever happened to America. Period. No Child Left Behind lowered the standard. Got these kids thinking that as long as they try, they should be rewarded. No, that's
okay,
the
so
Derek,
let me
can I ask you a question? Can I ask Derek a question?
Sure.
go ahead.
What is your passion?
I can't hear you. I can't.
What is your profession?
What's my profession?
What is your profession? Yes.
Oh,
I
I don't know what to say. I mean,
what you did today.
So I work for the government, and I work for the government.
Okay, you basically military. You're military. All for one, all for
military.
all, right?
You're military.
No,
military. You should be the guy coming back there trying to help everybody out. Not pushing the women and kids out the face. You're too slow. Move. You're too slow.
And they sign people up for the military.
So listen. Wait a minute, Linda. You saying
your foundation is different.
No, listen. I think everybody should join the military.
Let me jump in for a minute here, because I like the discussion. I like the conversation.
We can keep going
but we can bring this to a close shortly. But what I do like is the fact that, as you can hear, those of you're watching, your viewers, you're tuned in. These are all students, and so we are having a conversation about recent situation that happened and whether or not the children who are responsible for the death of the victim, if the parents should be penalized, if there should be tougher or stricter regulations.
Stricter regulations. I don't want to call it a penalty.
Right.
Stricter regulations.
So, but I do like the fact that we can agree that we come from different walks of life, right? And so I love the success stories that, some of you did have single moms and you turned out great, and what you've done with your life, right? But then there are some people who don't have that story. That's not their story. They came from the dirt and they stayed in the dirt, or they, or they came from a middle class or a well-off family, and they maybe just ended up on hard times. You never really know or understand why people end up in situations and they need government assistance. But I do believe that something should change when it comes to discipline, when it comes to the consequences of the behavior that we frequently see over and over and over, especially in low-income communities. And so that's really my heart. That's my concern. So I really do appreciate these conversations. Derek, I want you to give me 30-second closing remarks. Candy, 30 seconds closing remarks. Jasmine, 30 seconds closing remarks.
Reform. And yes, the military is an avenue. I'm not saying that it's perfect or it's the best avenue, but at 18, young man, young woman, young lady, if you don't have if you're not ready to jump out there and be an adult, then that is an avenue where you can learn a skill set, where you can learn discipline, where you can learn organizational skills, and you can use it to be your benefit, especially in this area with a top secret clearance. So 30 seconds, that's it.
All right, thank you. Candy, I'm coming to you.
I just want to say, Dirk, you are so funny. Like, you're ridiculous, dude. Seriously. You're so funny.
Thank you. I'm here all night, people.
Last thing I want to say is, Dirk, what you said earlier when you was like, they getting locked up and stuff like that, and we're still paying for it with our tax dollars. We are. Regardless, we're going to pay for it with our tax dollars if they're locked up. Regardless, we're going to pay for it if they're sitting on their butt at home on welfare. So that's why I agree with Miss Jazz when she said, like, we need some type of therapy, some type of rehabilitation. jail is not always necessarily the answer. A lot of times you have these little low budget, little nickel dime, little criminals go to jail and they come out, geez. You know what I mean? They like come out bigger gangsters than they went in, you know? So it's not always the answer. Jail can sometimes turn people into bigger criminals. So.
Okay, thank you for that. Jasmine, I'm coming to you.
Okay.
Okay, Jasmine, you're muted. We can't hear you.
I'm sorry. Sorry, the word is
Nope,
reform.
that was your 30 seconds.
Trying to reform a system. No, are we to reform the system or restrict the system? Because rebuilding a system is two different things from restricting a system. Restriction,
Reform
we're
and
not trying to
rebuild.
rebuild people. We want reform. We want to rebuild something new.
I can't hear him.
Okay, so we're having
I
some
just want to say her
technical.
30 seconds still count if she frozen. 1 Mississippi, 2
Dirk, you
Mississippi,
stupid.
3 Mississippi.
Okay, so all right,
30
well,
times up.
So special.
so I just want to say thank you to Jasmine, Candy, and Derek for this totally impromptu conversation that was not scripted. It wasn't planned. And thank you for the discussion. Thank you all for tuning in. But I just wanted to share the conversations that we have in class. And so they are all students. They are all property management professionals. And so these are the type of conversations that we must have because it impacts the entire community. And although, this happened in Washington, D.C., crimes and this type of behavior is not limited to just D.C. or Maryland or Virginia. It's not just limited to low income communities. So I think we would do greater as a community when we come together. We have these type of conversations, and no, it's not going to be easy, and no, everybody is not going to agree, but to walk away with, okay, what is our biggest takeaway and what can we capitalize off of using this conversation and this discussion. So you all, thank you again for joining me today, and thank you for your time. Thank you for all those who are watching. If you follow me on Facebook or YouTube, please make sure that you are tuning in each and every Monday right here on Facebook or YouTube at 7:30 p.m. on Mondays. Our time is up, and we thank you for yours. We're going to say bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.